during the crisis.
There are some young people also here. So हमारे जो पुराने चावल जो हैं वो तो खराब हो गए. तो हमारा तो कोई.
I don't believe that. I think.
हमारा तो कुछ हो नहीं सकता. But there are young people who are here and who would better be able to understand what is the advantage of doing the kind of work that you do, and what are the disadvantages of doing the kind of work you do, as opposed to becoming software engineers or doctors or teachers or whatever else.
I don't think everybody is called to do the full-time work like I am doing. You can be in your professions and you can still do the work you are doing.
Can you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, you can give your time. You can decide whether you want to give some time each week for a certain cause. Now, internet is a great, advantage. We didn't have it when we began at your age. And you can connect without actually having to go to the spot, with people there. I mean, the generation today which is out on the streets, the stone pelters as they are called, I don't like that word because I don't like to insult them. They are all connected through the Facebook. Some of you can join the Facebook and start the discussion with them and try to understand why are they reacting in the way they are reacting. Get into dialogue with them through that Facebook discussion. And unless we understand why they are saying and doing what they are doing, how will we know how to find answers together to the crisis that has been created, During 26/11, the entire country was with people of Bombay. It stood behind Bombay. Mumbai. But कल आ जाएगा, आने दो. But we have not heard, there has been no response of civil society of India to the crisis in Kashmir. Why is it? They ask me this question and then very sweetly say, but you are not Indian anymore, you belong to us, which is very nice. But why is it that India cannot respond at a human level? We are not asked to take sides, but surely we can send a message to the family of that 12-year-old boy who had no fault of his. He was killed. Do we not ask questions? Why is it that the tear gas shells are killing people in Kashmir? Why do we not ask these questions? They are simply meant to disperse the crowds. They are not meant to kill people. Is there something wrong? I also sent a complaint to the NHRC, only to find that Jammu Kashmir is the only state in the country which is not under the jurisdiction of NHRC. Why are we not asking questions? Why? We ourselves, people of India, the government has put that state out. Should we not be concerned about simple human rights violations? Why do we not raise a question as to why is the army chief not giving exemplary punishment speedily to the men who were responsible for the latest one? Because this whole cycle, let's be very clear, began with that fake encounter in April. So unless we are prepared to raise questions, and people of Bombay need to be particularly sensitive to what's happening in Kashmir, because Lashkar-e-Taiba, which was responsible for 26/11, was created to, for the Kashmir cause. If we remain insensitive, I think we will continue to face trouble in this city.
Last question from me before we open it to the House. You made a remark in one of the earliest segments of your talk that which is more important, like restoring of trust or getting justice for the victim. So are they like mutually exclusive, or are they feeding each other by osmosis, or priority of this or priority of the other?
I think they are not exclusive. We need to work on them side by side. In June, we had, at the time this Tufail was killed, we had a gathering of about 50 people from Jammu Kashmir in Srinagar. The city was under curfew, but we managed to still have the gathering. And the conference actually passed a resolution that they wanted the J&K state government to speedily act on the High Court order issued to them few days earlier to implement the J&K State Juvenile Justice Act, which is not being implemented. So the stone pelters, many of them are underage, are arrested and sent to the central prison where the militants and other criminals are also housed. It's so wrong. So to me, if you want to go further with reconciliation process, there are times when you have to take up the issue of justice also, which affects the whole society.
There is in Bombay a very powerful example of people doing something on the ground, and you were the designer of the program, which is the Mohalla Committee's program. So I would request you to tell us a little bit about how that was designed, why it did work. It was a successful program in its time, and it has been said that it was responsible for, in many ways, keeping peace in this city for a very long time. So that's the main question. And then the second question that comes up is that, is anything of that type looking feasible in Jammu and Kashmir?
In some of the most violent areas of Dharavi, we actually brought, even before the curfew ended, brought Hindus and Muslims. In one area it was the Tamilians, Tamilian Hindus and Muslims. Were there other communities also? Some Maharashtrians. I remember the school, and Arvind was very worried because the whole, I decided that people should be given, they had been under curfew for a long time, they should be given all a chance to speak. So they started by accusing one another. To start with, it was mild language, and it began to get louder and shriller and more provocative, accusatory. And Arvind was trying to get out of the room to see if he should call the police. So I said, no, we will just manage. But, he was quite worried. And at one point, actually, once they had blurted it out, it began to change, the atmosphere in the room. So you had to take risks. And we repeated this, and at the end of that meeting, a long meeting and very acrimonious meeting, very heated meeting, actually they decided together, the Hindus and Muslims, that they will ensure that the coming Friday, the Muslims would fearlessly go to the mosque which had been closed, and the Hindus will ensure their safety while they were praying, which is exactly what they did. The previous day, a group of Hindus, which was decided, the team was, selected from in that meeting, they went when the Muslims cleaned the mosque, and the following day they were outside, just as, they said, no police is needed, we will do it, and they ensured that the namaz went off peacefully. We carried the similar experiment in the area which was the Shiv Sena stronghold, and took the Muslims to the Shiv Sena, the hall in that locality, where the Hindus and Muslims, talked very frankly about what had gone on the previous weeks and a couple of months, and then decided that they will not attack one another. I was just a listener. I said nothing in that entire meeting. It was these people together, the community elders, there were young people also there, they together decided that they will not attack one another, and now they will ensure that the peace would prevail in Dharavi. So it is this, which was at the heart of the experiment of Mohalla committees. when Mr. Ribeiro and we launched it, we took the police commissioner to different affected areas, and we had this dialogue between the police and the communities, and that's how the experiment started. So one needs to be willing to go and talk to people and listen to very hard, harsh words and honest words. And if we are ready to face that, then I believe we will go further. In fact, that's what we are doing in Jammu Kashmir, you know, between Hindus and Muslims, Kashmiri Hindus and Kashmiri Muslims, between people of Jammu region, Kashmir region and Ladakh region. There have been very honest dialogue. The people have sat around the table and have hammered things out. But as they shared, as they expressed, they also began to then form, you know, certain common bonds and friendships, and they have been now, you know, these, you will see the kind of things they have done together. And
it breaks my heart to hear what you say, that none of us did anything for Kashmir. And I'm as guilty as I think a lot of us here are also. I have had people knock on my door, gorgeous looking little kids with their mothers or their fathers, who've come and said they wanted help. Now, monetary help, I immediately rang somebody that everyone should know, Ashok Pandit, because he was the only Kashmiri Pandit that I knew who was working on this, so I rang him up. And I was immediately told, don't give anything. So I fed these people and they went. Now, one feels helpless. What could we have done? There are
very credible.
Kashmir is so far away that physically that we can't do anything for them. What would you suggest? How can
I mean, I think right now, just the expression that you share the pain and grief of the families who lost their little children.
How do you share that pain and grief?
But through you use the television media, give a press statement, will ensure that it is published in the Kashmir newspapers. There are local television channels. You could, you know, we could get them to have it there.
How do we have access to them? I mean, you know,
go there. I go there. I have no problem. You can go there. There is no problem. You may have angry words thrown at you, but you must be prepared for that. There is one organization called HOPE, H-O-P-E, HOPE. It is run by Mrs. Nighat Shafi Pandit. She is working with orphans and widows for the last 15 years that I know of. She's running schools.
Is there a big difference between, say, Bombay and Kashmir?
Of course, of course. You see, riots is something that happens, it's finished, it's over, and you can deal with it. We must understand that for 20 years there was a violent insurgency that went on there. The police, until recently, till 3 years ago or so, central BSF, first it was army then vacated and handed over to BSF. BSF has been out of, you know, sort of controlling the urban areas, and CRPF was brought in about 3 years ago, that's paramilitary force, and J&K police has been trying to deal with. But they were trying to deal with militancy. Now gradually through that that between 2005 to 2007, that period, militancy has begun to be wound up, you know. So one can say there are remnants of militancy in the valley now. But the police and the civil administration has not had enough time to gear themselves from dealing with the militants and insurgents to the ordinary peacetime policing.